So, thank you all for coming to this month's Evergreen Admin Working Group. We're going to be talking about 2025 goals. And then anything, open forum, anything you folks are interested in chatting about, feel free. I'm just going to take some notes, especially for bugs or such. So if you have any bugs that you want to share with the group and get a little more heat on, please feel free to chat about them as well. Does anyone want to start? Oh, Melissa, I see you talking, but I don't hear you. Oh, okay. Anyone?
I can go. Um, Hi everyone, I'm Dan, from the Owl Library System in upstate New York. One thing that we're looking at trying out this year, we spent a lot of time thinking about like how do we communicate better with our staff and make sure like our member library staff are aware of what's going on and know where to go to find answers to questions. And we, to kind of help with that, are thinking of maybe creating an AI-powered docs site, which sounds weird. But and where we've done a couple like very limited tests. But what we're basically looking to do is kind of retool all of our documentation, which right now is on kind of like an open source wiki site, and put it on a different kind of like use different infrastructure for it. So just to reorganize it just a little bit, and then also stick a search on there that can answer questions with AI. And I'm still not 100% sure how I feel about that. I have like mixed feelings about the whole um, use this kind of like black box essentially of like we don't quite know what's going on inside there for search. And I feel weird even putting this on a recording because I don't know 100% if we're going to move forward with it or not. But it's just something that we're looking at right now. Um, so I'd love to hear also from if anyone is doing anything fun or with AI, or like also like stay away from me AI if anyone has strong opinions about that, maybe after everyone else has a chance to chat about what they're doing this year.
Okay, if hopefully my voice stays. So Pales is going to be looking into turning on upgrading one of our test servers to 3.14. We're currently on 3.13 to try out the MFA setup. We have some development coming in so that we can use the secondary permission groups as with MFA. So we're very I'm excited about it. I don't think anybody else is really excited about it, but we're gonna try that, test it out, see how it goes. And then our goal is to kind of roll it out depending on your permission group. So anybody with reports access would have it, library administrators would have it, with the ultimate goal of anyone who can register a workstation would have MFA required login. Um, and then we're doing the usual dedo projects. We have a couple migrations coming up. Um, we're looking at some other development with policy lassos for the lassos group, library groups. Sorry, we use them interchangeably for policies, stuff like that. So I would be interested in hearing more if anyone is also looking into using MFA first round, or if they're using it now.
I can go next. So we have eCard with Kipu, and I need to implement eRenew. So that's a project I've been working on and struggling with, and hope to get that up and running soon. We are going to implement Aspen this year, so that'll be a fun and large project to do. And I think we also kind of need to look at permission groups and see where that is. We have a lot of local administrators. We need to look at our permission groups and see who has what permission and to try to standardize them a little bit. It's confusing and difficult to communicate to libraries who want to hire new staff and give them a appropriate permission level. And we have some groups set up, like cataloging level 1, cataloging level 2, CERC level 1, CERC level 0. But it is a struggle to try to communicate and then we've added on extra things that people have needed, so it's kind of a mess. So we're gonna look at that. Maybe some CERC rule cleanup. I think that's always in order. Um, those are the highlights for Noble.
I'm happy to go next because mine is short. I'm new to the group. I'm actually part of a consortium. The Municipal Library Consortium joined the Missouri Evergreen Consortium October of last year. So we are brand new to the ILS, and we migrated to Evergreen and Aspen. We implemented Aspen at the same time. So it's been a really exciting year. And I think this year will be too. So I'm trying to settle more into the sort of daily, maybe not daily, but I'm trying to work my way into the Evergreen community. So I can't speak for Mac about what their projects are, but I know that they worked on a permissions project last year because we were the test group for the new permissions groups that they put in place. So we came onto the server with the new groups that they had worked on. So I think permissions really sort of dog everyone. It all gets unwieldy after a while. So thanks for having me. But yeah.
Welcome.
I'll go to continue the permissions projects. First, a plug for the permissions working group. We meet at I should know this by heart, the fourth Tuesday of each month at 3 p.m. if anyone wants to join. But one thing we're currently working on is figuring out like recommendations for permissions groups, especially if you're just like first installing Evergreen or thinking about a reorg. And it is difficult because, you know, all the libraries and consortia that use Evergreen are very different, but we're just trying to come up with like the base recommendations. So we're gonna hopefully finalize, it's really on me to clean up a spreadsheet. The circulation designations that we figured out. And then hopefully in February, we'll start to talk about cataloging. So if anyone's interested in joining that. And then for Pine specifically, I'm also working on a documentation reorg. So Dan, I'm very curious to hear how the AI stuff goes. We've also been we've been looking at AI tools very generally and lightly, like GPLS is rolling out things for library staff, but nothing. Yeah, we've thought about a chat like for Pine staff for support and things like that, but we really haven't gotten far on anything. So I'm really curious in how that would work. But we're also, just having issues with library staff being able to find the right documentation or, the answer that they're looking for. So thinking about different ways to organize that. A lot of staff asked for a search bar and there is one. We just use DocuWiki. So things like that. We're like, oh, wow, they don't even know like search is possible. So trying to figure out how to improve that experience for them. And then otherwise, we're upgrading to 3.14 in 3 weeks. So that's really where our head has been down a lot on that. This is we're on 3.12 now, so it's a really big upgrade for us. So I think we're all, fluctuating between excitement and extreme anxiety. So
Yeah, we also will go to 3.14 later this year, from 3.12. And then, yeah, our big thing is permissions because we have two big libraries migrating on. hopefully by the end of the year. So trying to get it cleaned up before they come on board and add a bunch more staff to our mix. That's probably, and then just the cleanup of our catalog because we've been bringing new libraries on and then cleaning up records. So that's those are our two focuses probably this year.
Well, we're planning to go to 314 in April, mid-April. So, yep. And we're updating some other things on the server. So we're focused on that testing and also the item alerts, tags, and notes rework. We're testing that, and our office is moving. So we got stuff.
And Joan, you're doing a big jump, right? It's like from 310 to
7.
314, 37 to 314.
Yep.
So you can get all sorts of new features.
Yeah, we are. It was some of the item alert problems in 3.8 that carried over to subsequent releases, and kind of that whole area that we were reluctant to move from 3.7 until we could get some of that fixed.
How are you? I guess I'm just wondering with all of the updates, are you how are you handling training for that?
So there's, obviously different areas. We have acquisitions libraries also. So there's going to be and a lot of screen changes with acquisitions. So we're going to do a mix of updating our documentation and then holding group training sessions on Zoom. I don't know that we'll need to do that for like circulation and holds, but for cataloging and acquisitions, that's the plan.
When did the new staff catalog come into play? I don't remember which version. Does anybody remember?
Well, I've been
Or
looking at the staff catalog in 314, and
okay.
except for that separation of org unit and we use shelving location groups. So that'll be different for them if that doesn't
Okay.
change by the time we come up. But April's coming up pretty quick. It felt good when April was 10 months away. So, but I think a lot of the real happy to see the work Noble did in putting Novelist, back in the staff catalog. So try to promote some of the good stuff. And
Well, that's exciting. Anyone else want to share anything they're working on or hope to work on this year? Okay. Dan, do you want to circle back to your documentation? Kind of see. Um, I want to say that we haven't really explored a lot of the AI components. I'm a little more than leery about even using it. I try not to use it at all in my life. Um, but I guess um, it is something we struggle with, like Susan mentioned, like people not even knowing there's a search option available. And like we try and tag all of our documentation, and we are trying to like link components that like relate to each other together, like, you know, the item status page. Did you know that you can use this for item buckets and stuff like that, like linking them together? Or so I'd be curious what you're thinking or your approach for your reorganization will be.
Well, right now we kind of have d different structures for our docs in set up in different ways. Like we have like one big like checkout page, for example, that I think kind of mirrors the Evergreen docs checkout page, like kind of the what the documentation interest group has put together. Um, but then some of our other docs pages are kind of just like very short, like more like procedure based. And I think I want to kind of structure everything so that it's like a little bit more on a page, kind of like how we have our checkout or check-in structured. So part of it is just like restructuring and reorganizing and like finding places where we have like duplicate information in different places and just making sure that we only say something once so that like if like a procedure changes and you're like, oh, I need to update docs and you update it in one place, you don't end up finding out a year later, oh no, it was also on this other page here. Um, so that's kind of the reorganization part of it. The other reorganization part of it is more like the technical reorganization. Right now, our docs is on an open source platform called FOSSWiki, and it's worked well for a lot of things. It uses its own kind of different version of Markdown. And so part of what I want to do for like also kind of like the technical reorganization part is to like put it on a site that uses standard Markdown because then it makes it a lot easier to hopefully we wouldn't end up doing this, but then if we're like, oh, actually, here's this other neat shiny thing, then it makes it a lot easier to transfer to like a different platform. But hopefully that'll just be something that we do this one time and not like every year or something. Um, then what was the other part of your question? I'm sorry, Elizabeth.
No, I was just kind of trying to see because we struggle with this as well, just getting people to know and understand that there is documentation other than just saying like in a support ticket, like here's a direct link to all of our like the page of documentation you're looking for. Um, I was just curious like how if you're like tagging it or like connecting related elements together or
Yeah, we'll
um,
definitely have like a lot of links. And I'm also trying to think of a good way of like integrating and like both separating the technical documentation from like the the part of documentation that's more like policy and procedure, if that makes sense. And so like I kind of want to have our documentation mostly mirror the actual Evergreen documentation and have things that are related to our policies and procedures kind of separate but still pointed to. Um, Two of the big motivations for this project have been that we do have Matomo Analytics, which is Matomo's the it's like open source um, analytics platform that I think can be integrated into Evergreen too, but we use it on our docs site. And so we can see like what different kinds of things staff are searching for support for. And a lot of times people will type in like in an entire sentence, like, how do I forgive a fine? And for our keyword search, that doesn't actually end up really pulling up any results because our keyword search doesn't work like Google does. It will actually look for a page that has the words, how do I forgive a fine on it, and then won't find any results. And then staff can't find what they're looking for. So that's part of why we're looking for something that can kind of accommodate the type of searching that staff are doing. And then the other thing that we're like thinking about, and this is probably not a huge concern, but if you go to like ChatGPT now and ask it an Evergreen related question, it will know the answer based off of the like Evergreen docs that it has access to already. And so, there are some places where like the way that we do things might not be the same way that like all other consortia do them. And so we have like specific policies or procedures um, for like forgiving fines. We don't let people do void bills or adjust to zero, or we have a specific way that they're supposed to forgive fines. Um, but if one of our staff members were to say, "Hey, I'm going to ask ChatGPT about this because I can't find the answer on Owl's docs," then they might all of a sudden be given the answer, "Oh, you should void the bill this way, and here's how to do it." And it'll actually be all technically correct information. It just won't kind of align with the way that our consortium wants people to be doing things. Um, and I also don't know how up to date ChatGPT always is either. Like if it's using docs from 3.3 or whatever, I don't even know. Um, but we're kind of feeling a little bit, and again, like maybe this is a totally out there concern, but like, oh, if our staff start to like rely a lot more on tools like ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever people are using to find answers to their questions, then we need to kind of meet them where they are for that.
Makes sense. Now I'm wondering like how many of our libraries are just using ChatGPT to find answers. Mm. Oh, hmm. Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a good way to figure that out either. Um, but I do use it for like personally for like help with like we do a lot of our reports just doing SQL queries. And so like I'll like say like I'll write up a SQL query and then like run it by ChatGPT and be like, "Hey, do you see any problems with this?" Um, which maybe I shouldn't be doing. I don't know. Um, so it's a weird world now.
In more ways than one.
Yeah.
Um, I guess those of you who are working on permissions projects, do you have like a point where you're starting? Are you, I guess, Melissa, it sounds like you're kind of further along than maybe Martha is. Do you want to chat about how you're setting up your projects at all? Or are you still in the building phase?
I can chat a little bit, but I'm I agree. Dan's comments about the AI and how people are searching, I think is, yeah, it'll be interesting and trying to align, like, I don't know, jumping ahead of it, right? To give people good information rather than what they find on ChatGPT makes you rethink the whole thing with searching. But yeah, our permissions project is basically I'm trying to categorize everybody now. With where they're at and then come up with those groupings. And then, I mean, that just trying to pull out because we have just the set Evergreen pack that came when we got here. So we sort of set people there. Well, actually, we had almost everybody just using all one login for a long time. So the first step was make everybody log in separately. And then we've been gradually trying to give people permissions, and then overcoming the idea, everybody's like, well, I'll just give my login so everybody can do that instead of, no, let's think about who needs permission to do it. Like we even had a project the other day where I created a volunteer login because we had people just printing spine labels, and they're like, but let's just give them a staff login in case they get logged out. And it's like, no, like we want them to just do what they're supposed to do. So, but yeah, that's where I am at. Just trying to get everybody where they're at and then come up with categories and then a nice chart to show people like who does what and when you do an override and when you can do it yourself. Um, we haven't even started to play with like everybody has permission to start their to register a workstation right now. So that was another permission I've been thinking about taking away on some level, like, some of the lower levels, but then they use different computers. So I know there'd be lots of uproar about that. But yeah, that's just where we're at. So, but we're open to ideas or how other people do it too. And I know the permission group, yeah, I agree with attending those meetings and how they're doing it. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of
We restrict the register workstation just for the local system administrator account. So sometimes people get stuck when they wipe out their cookies.
Yeah, we started giving that out during COVID when people were working at home. And now we're kind of wanting to claw that back and maybe, but kind of go through some kind of process to ask directors, if that's an appropriate permission for people. It may be, it may not be. So that's why we're kind of trying to review everything.
Yeah, we everyone can register a workstation except the lowest circulation permission group. So for the circ clerk. So and we did that so that volunteers or frontlines, like a majority of the frontline staff, can't. And it was kind of a result of COVID where there was just a deluge of people logging in and registering a workstation on a home device, and it worked for a little while, but then after a while we kind of got a little concerned. You know, not everyone needed to or had tasks they needed to be doing at home. So once the buildings opened up again, we kind of readjusted that. Um, and we rely heavily on the secondary permissions. I know a lot of libraries kind of give everybody, as you go up, you kind of inherit everything, and we kind of have more of a circ groups, and then we have cataloging groups, and you inherit from the child below you, but we also have some permissions that are exclusively secondary and unrelated. So like reports, it's you have to sign a waiver, and so then you can get that or not have that. There's an ILL staff one, depending on the workflow of your ILO workflow. So some libraries don't even need it at all. So we kind of took that approach where it was more kind of combo of a la carte, or these are the permissions you need to complete a specific skill set or types, skill types. Task, not skill, task. So, and that was a hard thing to kind of get member libraries to understand that, just because they work there doesn't mean they should be able to do literally everything. They should only have to they should only have permission to do the things that they're actually tasked to do. But
We don't use many secondary permissions. What about the rest of you? Do you tend to make use of them?
It's something we've talked a lot about and I think want to do eventually. It's just, yeah, we haven't really had the ability to like sit down and figure out how we would do it. We did create a new, it's called a cat coordinator. So it's basically a cataloger who has like the highest level cataloger who also has some local admin permissions like registering for a workstation and I think like shelving locations and some, and I think reports. So, and that's something they do have to get certified for. And we did just create like an additional set of permissions. I think it's like 12 additional that just sits on top of our regular cataloger group. So, but yeah, other than that, and that's been fine. We haven't had any issues, but other than that, we haven't used them. But it's always something that I think we would like to do more of.
Mech also works with that sort of modular system where so we've got AC admin, there are groups, and then you inherit from the groups above. But yeah, so cataloging, there's several, of course, cataloging levels, circ levels, reports, etc. And that's also the way we did it on our old system, so it makes sense to me. But moving to that from a different system, I would be a real challenge.
Yeah, we also use secondary permissions, mostly for like the kind of different levels that we have for circ and the different levels that we have for cataloging. And so some like a staff member might have like a higher level circ than the base staff level would have, but also does cataloging duties. So we use the secondary permissions to basically say they have this level of circ and this level of cataloging.
Yeah, sometimes makes troubleshooting why one staff can do something and another staff can't a little fun, but as long as we have standard groups, that has been very helpful. We have a couple libraries that really wanted us to give specific permissions outside of the group to specific staff, and we said no, it's just too hard to maintain that. So, you have to just acknowledge that they may have more access than they need if they need like one or two things. But for the most part, we haven't had too much of that. All right. Anything else you folks want to chat about? I'm very eager to see how everyone's 314 upgrades go. But or do we want to talk about that? Is there anything, that you folks have noticed thus far in your testing that you're excited about or gave you pause?
I'll just bring up reports. I feel like it's always the elephant in the room. Elizabeth and I were emailing about it a little bit. But something exciting. So I will say when I first was testing, I was just not that excited about the whole process of, training with library staff. I was just nervous because it felt so different. But I'm feeling a lot better about it now. And there's been a lot of good fixes recently. I want to say they're like 314, one or two or three. I feel like in the last month or so, there's been a lot of fixes and they've all been very welcome fixes. So I am now at a place where I'm like, okay, I'm excited about this. And um, we just did our first virtual session with staff and they really didn't say much. So I don't know if that's a good thing, but I think we got one comment that said it looked great. And I was like, okay, I'll take that one comment and run with it. So yeah, I'll be curious how others are kind of going about that or any feedback you've gotten from staff.
I'll say for the new reporter, we're on 13 and that's when we kind of got it. We rolled back to legacy because there's a couple bugs and now the annual report for our statewide report is coming. So we have to wait until that is over because I feel like if we like relaunched the Angular reporter, we would have like pickaxes and uh, we'd be like Frankenstein as monster. They would definitely come for us. So, because there is just a general apprehension about reports, and so now that things are not exactly how they looked, they function all the same for like 99% of the things. It was just not having that muscle memory of where things were previously. So, we'll be relaunching it in March. But yeah, training was um, kind of similar. Nobody really said anything once we did it. We just provided updated written documentation. We did videos, and folks were just like, okay. And then we ran into some bugs, so then we rolled back. So we really don't have a good idea of how people are are going to feel about it. So
We're planning on holding off on the Angular reports when we come up on 314 and then give that to them later because we think it'll just be, going from 3.7 to 314 is a lot of changes. So that's one that we don't really have to force upon them.
yeah. Will you be offering the simple reporter as well, or just?
No, it's too slow for CWMRs. And we're the ones that tested it, but it's it's really slow. One report might take, I don't even remember the times, but it might take a minute for the Evergreen reports that we have currently. And if we use a simple reporter, it could take hours. And the problem with that is obvious, but the other problem is that it backs up the queue. So we're sad about that because we were excited about the simple reporter, but it's just too slow.
How many reports do you have available in the queue? Like, is it we have two. We only allow two at a time.
I think we have three.
Okay. And do you have a time limit?
A time limit?
Yeah, we
Not that
time
I'm,
out after 2 hours. If your report runs longer than 2 hours, it kills it and then it moves on to the next one. So I was just curious.
that I don't know.
Okay.
But I mean, we've been up on Evergreen since 2012. So having their report change from any report I run, like less than a minute,
Mm-hmm.
I just click the reports folder and then see that it's completed.
Mm-hmm.
So, even if it wasn't the queue problem,
Mm-hmm.
that's not going to be a welcome change.
Oh no, no. I've run similar reports, like basically the same report in both, and the simple reporter definitely does take longer. And ours doesn't check for new reports all the time. It like waits 15 minutes. It's weird. I'm not sure why we
Oh, okay.
so but
So are you using both the simple reporter and Evergreen reports?
the simple reporter is available for those who have simple reports to do, but or who don't have permission to run, full reports. So, um, but yeah, I use the main one, the full one exclusively. So,
Something that came up recently was do you think it would be a good wish list bug to separate the permissions, like it's the same permission for cloning a report or sorry, yeah, cloning a template and then creating one from scratch? And do you all think that would be helpful if there was one permission that allowed cloning and one that allowed creation from scratch? And there may be a bug about that. I just can't think of it right now.
for us, yes, because we have two permissions for reports. You have the runner, and then you have admin. So admin obviously can do everything, and then the runner can only run reports. They can't clone, they can't edit. So, you have staff who are running reports on other staff folders, which are other staff templates, which is less than ideal.
Right.
So being able to clone would be really nice for
Mhm.
them.
And yeah, we were thinking just for, I guess, almost like a protection of, if you're not really familiar with creating templates and you're creating something and then, using that data to report, to your board or something like that, it could be problematic. But that may be, and maybe we'd have like more of a certification process for that instead of we just have classes that anyone can take. And then, as long as you either inherit the reports perms or, the director or someone can ask to add those. So yeah, we're just trying to think of ways to separate that out a little bit based on, like skill set. I don't know.
There is one on a new permission preventing creating reports from shared templates. So if that goes through, we're kind of out of luck for us.
Oh
So,
yeah. Okay.
but
Yeah, I think that would be a problem for our staff too, because I think that's like you said, I think they mostly do that. I don't know how many are actually cloning into their own folders.
but yeah, if you do create that, please let us know. We can share it. Anything else you folks are interested in chatting about?
I have a question for you all. How many upgrades a year do you do? We've always done 2, and we're thinking of going down to 1. We usually do one in beginning of January. We have a number of academics, so we try to do one in January when they're on semester break, and then one sometime in the summertime. But it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work leading up to a release. We do a lot of customizations that we have to get together. And then there's the kind of the afterwards where we have meetings or training with libraries. So everybody's saying 1. Yeah, okay, good. I'm not sure what 0.5 is, but that's okay.
We used to do 2. We did 2 for a long time, and it really it's you no sooner get the release up, and then you're starting to test the next release, and then we've dropped to 1, but mostly because the releases didn't test the way that we wanted them to. So if you could spend a week testing and everything's perfect and you're done, then I think that changes the picture.
Yeah.
So a half is 1 every other year.
Yeah, that's the 0.5. That's
Yeah.
interesting. We always want to get the latest and greatest out to our users and certainly bug fixes, but there's something to be said for waiting and making sure a release is, has had a few bug fixes applied to it.
We only do
Um,
1. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
We were a small consortium before we joined this larger consortium, and we usually did 1 a year on our old system, but sometimes we would just wait until a release had something that we thought was legitimately going to be a real improvement for our patrons and staff. Not every release has an equal amount of interest for us for the modules that we need. So it's interesting now, MEC does 1 a year. They just upgraded the training server to 3.13, and we're going to go to 3.13 in February. So I think it's a little different for me, but I think it does mean that we get 2 upgrades at a time, which sort of increases the chance that staff will think something good is happening when we upgrade, not just that it's an inconvenience for them to learn something new.
Yeah, trying to make it, exciting to have a release is good. There's always something that I really want that's like on the background, and then I'm like, oh, but nothing else is really flashy for like the front desk stuff. And I'm like, but this one thing is gonna save me so much time, and they're not gonna care. So Oh, Angular circ policies. Yeah, that was the one thing where I was like, yes, it saved my life. So much time. I do have a question. So now that both policy screens are in Angular, does anybody notice that when you select multiple policies in the holds policy page and you right click, it will queue them up and you can rapidly go through and make updates in order, but you can't do that in the circulation policies. Kind of like tabs the holds policies and then so like as you say hit save and it closes, it goes on to the next one in the list that you had selected. Heather's testing. I'm just trying to figure out if one is a bug and one is like the intended workflow, because it's really annoying when I have to update like multiple circ policies and not being able to select a bunch and then hit edit.
Yeah, what it looks like for the circ policies is it won't even let me edit. So like that's grayed out.
Hmm.
That option to edit selected when it's more than one selected. I think that the shelving location editor allows you to do more than one at once, if I remember correctly. Yeah, the shelving location editor lets you edit them in the same way, like it as soon as you save the change, it'll move on to the next one. Um,
Okay, so we think that is the intended work, not workflow, but functionality versus
I think it's the better functionality.
the one I liked. I just didn't know if it was the intended.
It's weird that one or a couple of them let you, but circ policies doesn't.
Yeah, that's the one I really wanted. I use it in the holds policies when we have like a new resource sharing group. I can turn on all the policies like in order when it's time to turn them off. Now that I've said it, I'm gonna put in a bug about it, and they're gonna be like, "No, that's not how it's supposed to work," and then it's gonna be gone, and I'm gonna be heartbroken.
Oh, you're worried about it ta being taken away from all of the others?
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
no, I hope not.
So
yeah,
I went to test, which is 314, not 313. But on test it did that. I selected multiple to edit and I edited one, and when I hit save, it popped the next one just open. I didn't see them tabbed,
yeah. They're
but
not like tabbed
they
that
were
way, but
stacked.
they're stacked. Yes, stacked is probably the more accurate way to. Was it in the circ policies or the holds policies?
I was in hold policies. Did you
Okay,
mean circ policies?
yeah, that's the one
Oh,
where it
you
won't
said
let
circ.
me.
Okay. Oh, it won't let you. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then I will file a bug, and hopefully we can get that. That'd be fun. All right. Well, if there are no other topics, we can adjourn for the day. Does anyone have anything that they're interested in talking about or learning a little bit more about for February? Anything that you think? I would love to know if anyone is using the link checker, and if so, can they explain to me how to do it? Okay. From the looks on a bunch of your faces, I think we're all in the same boat. Okay.
Yeah, we don't use it, but I'd be curious how it works.
Now I have to find someone who knows how to use it. Maybe Jeff or Josh, do you know how to use it? Got it. All right. Well, I will put an email out to the group and see if anyone wants to share anything. Unless someone else has a different topic they're interested in learning about. Oh, there was one question I had to ask about the conference. Traditionally, um, during the conference, there's interest groups meetings, and they are scheduling them for uh, either including them as part of the Hack Fest. And would you folks want to meet during, I guess, the conference at all? Or do you feel, because I feel like sometimes the interest groups are stacked against each other. So sometimes one has more pull than the other.
I don't think I'm going to be able to be there, so.
Okay. All right.
I mean, sometimes it's nice to be on the schedule too, so that people like, I think people see it more, like
Mhm.
people who aren't as involved. But otherwise, I mean, especially since it's online,
Mhm.
there's probably less of a reason. But that would be the only reason I could think of to do it during the conference is sometimes you just get that new people might become aware of it. But
Mhm. That makes sense. Okay, I'll let Jennifer Weston know that we were tentatively interested, um, depending on who we're pitted up against on the schedule. Because if we're pitted up against like cataloging, I'm like, we're not gonna. I think most of us would go cataloging.
I think that's what I was up against last year too. And I was like, no one's going to talk about permissions. It's no fun. I'm getting
Yeah.
that for.
Would we want to tag team permissions in this group? I wonder if they would let us do that.
I was thinking because there's so much overlap, and it's like it touches it. So yeah, I would be completely, yeah, that would be great.
Okay. I'll email Jennifer and copy you and see what she thinks. So, all right. Well, thank you all for taking the time to chat today. I hope those of you in the wintry, cold climates stay warm. I'm very jealous of y'all in Georgia and the South today. So, well, otherwise, I'll look into someone for the link checker, and I'll send out info about next month's meeting. So, thank you.
Thank you.